Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about how to practice for your road test post COVID-19. And we know that there are some states, two states actually in the United States, Wisconsin and Georgia, are allowing students to move on without having a test, but many DOTs are going to continue to have tests. We're going to show you how to practice and be ready so that you can pass your road test first time. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about how to practice for your driver's test after this whole, lockdown has been lifted and it is starting to ease. We are starting to move back into working and those types of things. Eric is here. Lightning Farron is here. Carrie is here. Hello. Eric says it's nice in Minnesota. It's been absolutely gorgeous here in the interior of British Columbia. Katie's here. Carrie's here. Yes, and Wisconsin is the second U.S. state to allow drivers to move through the graduated driver's license without having to take a test. And Carrie, greetings from Minnesota. Congratulations again on 20 million views. Yeah, pretty incredible number for sure. Drawing a fun parallel had a silver play button celebration around a year ago in early May. Yes, we did. And the growth of the channel, unfortunately, has been a little bit stalled here with the month of April owing to, COVID-19. Not many people are watching the channel, watching the videos and those types of things. And it's, but that's part and parcel of a lot of instructional channels are suffering as well. So Corey's here as well. Samu Ray is here. Hey, hello. Awesome. So if you're tuning in, you're watching on the replay, let us know where you're tuning in from, what your state is doing, what your province is doing in order to take care of the backlog and those types of things. So basically, talking about what's going to happen here in post-COVID, I did talk about that last week. There's a couple of avenues that they can take. One avenue is as going the way of what Georgia and what Wisconsin are doing in terms of allowing people to simply move through without having to take a license. The other option that DOTs have available to them is to shorten the duration of the road test that you're going to take and to bring in more personnel, which is going to be challenging for them because the personnel who are going to test you for a road test have to be qualified. So most likely what they're going to do is they're going to shorten the duration of the test. So instead of the test being 15 or 20 minutes, the test is going to be 5 or 8 minutes, as it is in New York and New York City and other larger metropolitan areas. And once they shorten the duration of the test, there's one good thing that comes out of this. There are some people who go in and take a road test and they simply use the road test as a driving instruction lesson. That's the way they see it. They go in and they do the road test and they see it as a learning experience, and they just take 3 or 4 tests until they pass the test. And they don't take any driver's lessons. They don't practice for the test and those types of things. That's going to go out the window with shorter duration of road test, because if you have a road test that's only 5 or 8 minutes, you're not going to learn enough in that 5 or 8 minutes about what's expected of you on a road test. So thus, you're going to have to be much more prepared for your road test and make sure that you got all your, you got everything lined up, because these driving instructors are going to expect a lot of you in a very short period of time. So we're going to talk to you today about how to practice and how to do that. So Farron says she just woke up for this. I had no idea this was happening. I'm glad I woke up. Awesome, and we're so glad that you did, Farron. It's always awesome to have you here. Jelly Beans here. You is tuning in from Ontario. DC, hello. Michael's here from Jackson, Michigan. And Neptune checking in from Maine. And Michael, bonjour. Comment ça va? My little bit of French, very little bit of French that I can talk to you in. So awesome. So, yeah, we talked about that. I am believing that the longer this goes on, because we're going into 6-7 weeks now in terms of the lockdown. By the time we get to 2 months, I think we're going to see many more states and provinces following the lead of Georgia and Wisconsin. What's happening with the, waiving the road test is that driving instructors are getting on board and ringing the fear-mongering bell. They're saying, oh, somebody's going to make a mistake and they're going to have a crash and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I don't buy into that fear mongering. I think that young people are going to do the best they can. I believe that parents of young people and young drivers are going to self-regulate, and they're going to do a good job of that because they haven't done driver education, and we've done studies in the past. We have shown that drivers who don't do driver's education are more aware of the risk involved in driving. And here's an example of it. In 1968, the state of Michigan had boasted that they had 98% enrollment in driver education programs. So this is 50 years ago that we're talking about. The next year, after they boasted that they had 98% enrollment in their driver education courses in high schools, because you have to realize in the late 1960s and early 1970s, the United States of America, almost every state, it was a requirement for young people to take driver training in high schools. So it was part and parcel of your high school course. What happened the next year was that traffic crashes and traffic fatalities among young people went up 10%. Yeah, it went up 10%. So I don't buy into the fear mongering because history has shown that that is simply not true, that young people are going to have more crashes and whatnot. I don't believe that young people are going to have more crashes. I believe that young people are going to self-regulate. I believe that we have safer cars. I believe that people are more aware. I believe that young people are more aware, and I'm hoping, and I like to think that parents are more involved in driving with young people. So I don't see this waiving a road test as a bad thing, because really, how much can a driving examiner learn in a 20-minute road test? What they can learn whether a student can hold it together for 20 minutes, whether he or she is being tested, and can undergo the pressure. No, in my mind, it does not. It is not indicative of whether a young driver is ready to go out and drive on his or her own. So I don't buy into the fear mongering that this is all going to blow up in her face. I simply don't believe that. Thompson, what will happen to the G road test in Ontario? Thomas, sorry. I believe the same thing's going to happen. I believe that Ontario is going to have to start pushing people through the GLD or the GLP program there in Ontario, that they're going to simply move them from G1 into the G2 phase, and they're going to move them into the novice phase. The MTO simply does not have enough personnel to move people through, and it's just a matter of time. If this goes on for another couple of weeks, this is what's going to happen. They're going to start moving people through. Jonathan, hello, my friend. How are you there in New York? Awesome. Michael, good one, Rick. Same here. Just wanted to finesse my greetings this time around. That's awesome. Brilliant. Carrie, yep. Excellent. Okay. Hall phase young people still can learn without the driving instructor. Yes, they can. There's plenty of videos here on the Smart Drive Test channel about how to parallel park, how to three-point turn, how to reverse stall park. Remember, when you're learning any skill, regardless whether it's driving, whether it's music, whether it's sports, if you focus on the fundamentals, you focus on doing slow speed maneuvers, you are going to be a better driver overall. And know that the three basic maneuvers that you're going to be required to do are parallel parking, reverse stall parking, which is backing into a parking space, or three-point turn. And which of these maneuvers you're going to do on a road test are going to be up to the discretion of the examiner. So you may only do parallel parking. You may not parallel parking and reverse stall parking. You can almost guarantee that no matter where you take a road test in the world, you're going to have to do reverse stall parking. You're going to have to back into the parking space at the test center. So know how to do that, practice that, and look at the video here on the channel on reverse stall parking, and that will make sure that you know how to do that and you're good at it and can get it into the space. If it's a little bit crooked in the space, don't worry about it. Just leave it. As long as the vehicle's in the lines of the space, you're going to be just fine. Okay? Yes, it takes practice. Dennis, how are you? I missed my actual road test for Class 1 last year just because of changing new rules and regulations. Do I need to restart from trainings again and retake computer test again? Dennis, where are you that you're taking your Class 1? And do you still have your learners? Did you do your learners or did it expire, Dennis? Okay, Jonathan, say the purpose is to see if students earn the right of passage or privilege to drive by demonstrating that they can operate a motor vehicle. Okay, there's another conversation going on here. Hall phase, you don't know whether that a road test is not going to tell you that whether somebody practiced or not. A road test is not indicative of that. Students who drive really well may do poorly on a road test. Students who do poorly or haven't practiced a lot may just get lucky on the day of the road test. So a road test, and this has been a debate since the beginning of the motor car, and they're generally called competency tests, right? It's the same argument in public education systems, or in our public education system. Are we testing what the person knows or what the person doesn't know? Because some tests do test what the student doesn't know. And I did a video a little while ago where I was saying to smart drivers that the number one reason that drivers fail a road test in and around their test center is because they don't know what's expected of them on their road test. They don't know that the three basic maneuvers that you must absolutely know for a road test: reverse stall parking, parallel parking, 3-point turn. You have to know those at minimum. All of the rest of them: parking along a curb, 2-point reverse turn, backing up along a curve as they expect you to do in California, or the Ohio maneuverability test. If you don't know those exact maneuvers that are required by your state or province, then you're not going to be successful on your road test. Yes, any person can point the vehicle in a forward motion, but it's the slow speed maneuvers that get most drivers. So if you practice your slow speed maneuvers, you're doing your fundamentals in the parking lot, you're going to be better prepared for overall driving, not just your road test. And as I say to students all the time, the real learning in driving, and it doesn't matter what class of license you're going for, the real learning begins after you get your license. Because I've been trying to get my head around the channel. I'm trying to get my head around who is going for a road test, what they're expecting, and those types of things. And I realize people just want the information that's going to allow them to pass the road test. They don't, beyond that, they're not thinking about that right now. All they're thinking about is their test. They cannot see beyond the test. Okay, since I have G2 and going for G license, do you recommend practicing with the driving instructor and using their car for the G test, or practicing my own car and using my car for the road test? It doesn't matter which vehicle you use, whether you use the driving instructor's vehicle or you use your own vehicle. What I suggest to you is just in the couple of weeks leading up to your test, stick with the same car. And the thing is that with your own car, you're going to be able to practice more, and I think that you'll be more ready on road test day if you use your own vehicle as opposed to using the driving instructor's vehicle. Because if you're booking with the driving school, you're only going to be able to use the car when it's available. So I would counsel you to just do it in your own car. You're going to be fine. Make sure before you show up for your road test, on the day of your road test, that you do a pre-trip inspection. Make sure everything's working, the car's nice and clean. Seat belts are working. There's no fast food wrappers and garbage in the footwells and those types of things. No cracked windshields, the lights work, all the license plate and registration's all there and whatnot. So do all of that. Jonathan, I hope after May 15th the driving schools open up. I'm interested in getting a Class A license. That would be a good opportunity to get here in New York. Yes, and one thing about getting a Class 1, Jonathan, Class A license is called in New York. You're never going to be out of work after that. That's for sure. Samu Ray, my pre-licensing course, 4 lessons and rush road test come up to $370 US in the New York City. Am I getting ripped off? 4 lessons for $370. It's about $100 a lesson. How long are the lessons there in New York? Because if they're about an hour each, no, I don't think you're really. I think that's pretty standard. It's about $100 an hour to get a driving lesson. Michael, my uncle argues with the e-brake thing when parking. I personally use it, but he says when you put the car in park, it locks the gears. Differential, I think I'm saying it right. Yes, okay. Michael, this is a misconception. Many drivers believe this. They believe that when they put an automatic transmission into park, that the vehicle is secure. One of the things that I always say to people, if you want to absolutely guarantee that the vehicle is going to be there when you get back, apply the parking brake. Even if it is an automatic transmission, you put it into park. It's hard on the transmission because there's just a pin in there that it locks it. But you want a backup. You want a backup. Where's the backup? If one fails, is it still going to be there when you come back? Probably not. And probably, you could probably go the whole lifetime of a vehicle and the vehicle would still be there every time you put it in park. But apply the parking brake. So in an automatic transmission, stop the vehicle, keep your foot on the foot pedal, apply the parking brake, and then put it into park. And it's the reverse when you take off, right? You put your foot on the foot brake, release the parking brake, drop it into drive, and away you go, right? It's just a backup. And for the purposes of a road test, like, it's a good habit to have. But we know as driving instructors, we know as driving experts that people who drive automatic vehicles, 90% of them don't use the parking brake. 90% of people who drive manual transmissions, though, do use the parking brake. But it's an excellent habit, and I do advocate people using the parking brake every time they park the vehicle, regardless of whether they're driving a manual transmission or whether they're driving an automatic transmission. Make sure that you're doing it every time. All right? And yeah, and your uncle's fine, but Michael, I'll give you this advice. One thing that I've learned as a driving instructor, unless people are paying me to teach them how to drive, I do not say anything to anybody about how they drive. I sit in the passenger seat and I throw away the key. I don't say anything about the way they drive, okay? Unless they're paying me. So, just do the thing that you do. Apply the parking brake, put it into park, let your uncle do what he does. He or she does. Colin, my friend, how are you? Michael, I argued with him on this. I always use the e-brake. Yeah, best just use it, Michael. You're not going to win the argument. You're not going to change his mind. Okay, and I'll give you I'll give you a good story about that, Michael, about arguing with people. And this is one of the things that we need to ask ourselves in life as we go through life. When we're arguing with people, and sometimes it's fun. You're sitting around with a group of friends and you're having a conversation, you're having a few drinks, doing whatever, and you're having a conversation, you're arguing about something. That's great. It's good fun. It's good for your brain, right? You have a good argument about stuff and present information and those types of things and exchange of ideas and whatnot. But, a few weeks ago, I presented the information about Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed, the 1964 Corvair. I posted this on Facebook, and one of my good friends said to me that Ralph Nader was a liar, Ralph Nader was completely wrong, and the Chevrolet Corvette was, in fact, safe. And, I made a couple of comments. I basically said, Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, did for the automotive industry and automotive safety what the movie Super Size Me did for fast food nutritional information and fast food nutrition, right? Completely changed and revolutionized an industry. Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed completely changed and revolutionized automotive safety in a huge industry that was not changing. Same thing with Super Size Me. It completely revolutionized the way that McDonald's served fast food. But it got to a point in the argument after 3 or 4 comments that it wouldn't matter what I said. She was completely convinced that she was right and that Ralph Nader was a complete and utterly wrong. And I just stopped engaging at that point. I was like, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm not going to change your mind. You have your beliefs, and that's what it is. And as we go through life, you need to realize that. That is one of the skills that you need to learn as you go through life. That when you're talking to people, sometimes you're not going to win the argument. You're never going to change this person's mind. This person has his or her mind made up, and you're never going to change their mind. And it's the same thing when it comes to driving. And this is one thing that I have learned about driving. Unless people are paying you to teach them how to drive, you will never, ever change their mind about how they drive. I promise you that. I absolutely promise you that. Okay, here we go. So we had a couple of questions here. Hall phase, do all vehicles have emergency brakes? Yes, and it's called a parking brake, but it's parking/emergency brake Hall phase. They do, and the newer vehicles are now moving towards an electric parking brake, okay? And it can or cannot be used as an emergency brake. It's the fact that you go down the road, lose your brakes, and pull on the electric brake, it may or may not work. Depends on the model of the vehicle. But saying that at one and the same time, there is a backup in the regular braking system of the vehicle. It's divided into a primary and secondary system, so it's very unlikely that it will fail. Okay? All right, so Eleanor had a question here. Eleanor, is parallel parking required? Yes, it is, Eleanor. You can be almost guaranteed that no matter where you take a road test in the world, doesn't matter, you're going to be required to do parallel parking. Now, some people will say to you, oh, I didn't have to parallel park on my road test. And I've had people email me, comment, and say to me, oh, parallel parking is not required in the state of Delaware. Not true. Remember, if you don't do parallel parking on your road test, it's up to the discretion of the examiner. It's not that it's not required. It's the fact that your examiner simply didn't get you to do it, okay? So make sure that you can parallel park for the purposes of the road test. As well, the better you get at parallel parking, the better your overall driving is going to be, because parallel parking is going to teach you mastery of the primary controls, the steering wheel, the throttle, and the brake. It's going to teach you how to use those with exact precision, and as well, it's going to teach you where your vehicle is in space and place, okay? Where your vehicle is on the road in relation to other road users and fixed objects. So make sure that you learn how to parallel park. It's an awesome skill to be able to have and will improve your overall driving, all right? Okay. Colin, everybody's doing awesome. So Eleanor's from Illinois, and I think it depends on where you are on the... No, it doesn't, Eleanor. Make sure that you know how to do it. Colin, you're learning how to fly more complicated machines. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. DC. Okay. Dennis, I want to pursue my Class 1 career, but I don't have any idea how much now the training in Alberta is. I've already done the air brake and knowledge test last year. Okay, so you already have that stuff. So I believe that your knowledge test in Alberta is valid for 1 year. So you still have time to do it. And I'm not sure whether Alberta has implemented the MELT yet, the mandatory entry-level training program for truck drivers. I know that there are a couple of other provinces here that have done it. Ontario, Manitoba, I believe, has the mandatory entry-level training. I don't know whether any smart driver out there right now can tell me whether Alberta has the mandatory entry-level training program or not. But if they do, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, because unfortunately what's happened is because the mandatory entry-level training program, now most of these Class 1 programs at these schools are in the $7,000 to $10,000 range. They've pushed it really crazily out of reach for many people. Yeah. Okay, Eleanor, I'm having trouble with wheel movements. Any tips? Okay. All right. Okay, excellent. Yes, and have a look at the videos there, Eleanor, on that. The other thing that you can do, Eleanor, is know that the steering wheel moves 1.5 turns, 1.5 revolutions in each direction. So full to right, full to left. And if you've got it so that you can see the logo of the car in the middle of the steering wheel and it's straight, you're going down the road. 1 revolution and another half revolution is all the way left. To the right, 1 revolution and another half revolution is all the way to the right. So make sure that you keep track of the steering wheel so you know when your wheels are straight on your vehicle, and that will help you out. The other thing, this might help you out too, and might help out some other smart drivers. One of the things that race car drivers do to keep track of where the steering wheel is that when the steering wheel is straight, they'll take a piece of tape and put it on the center at the top of the steering wheel to know the position of the steering wheel and where the wheels are. So that might help you out as well and help other smart drivers out. Okay, Epic, watching from Harlem, Manhattan. Speaking of New Jersey, they haven't made the decision when to resume written and practice tests. Practice skills for road tests and written backlogs might waive road tests. Yeah, Epic, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of states start going the way of Georgia and Wisconsin. Those 2 states have waived road tests. And please don't buy into the fear mongering that, oh my God, this is all going to go sideways. Unfortunately, what this is going to have a negative impact on driving schools, because students are not going to be going to driving schools for lessons to pass the road test. And, yes, driving schools do teach some skills about how to drive, but for the most part, keep in mind, driving schools teach people how to pass a road test. That's what they do for the most part. Okay, Eleanor, so that will help you out. Once you know, just keep track of the steering wheel and maybe just practice that. Just go into a parking lot and just practice that a little bit. You know, turn the steering wheel one revolution and then bring it back one revolution. And the other thing you can do, Eleanor, to just make sure that your wheels are straight is just move the vehicle like maybe 4 to 6 inches, like about this much. Once you move the vehicle about that much, you should be able to know whether the vehicle is going straight or not and whether your wheels are straight. But with the steering wheel, with the logo there, you'll know if the steering wheel is straight and how to bring it back so it's straight. If you keep track of that, that'll help you out with those slow speed maneuvers, okay? And you're most welcome. We'd always love to help out. Eric, when driving on a freeway through a construction zone and it is closed or no road work being done like on a Sunday, do I still have to slow down for work zone speeds? Eric, I would need to look at the specific legislation in the state of Minnesota. I believe, and I don't know whether Tim is here because Tim might be able to answer this question from Smart Drive BC. Tim might be able to answer this question. I don't think that speed zones are applicable in construction sites. Now, don't quote me on this because I need to look this up and verify this information. But I don't think that speed zone signs in construction zones are applicable if there aren't any workers on site. Okay? But I would, like I said, I need to check that. But for the most part, yes, they are. I shot a video a couple of years ago, and I was on the Coquihalla Highway doing videos on how to drive on freeways. And it was a Sunday. There was nobody in the construction zone, and there were construction zone signs. And I was speeding because I had the speed camera in the car. And I ended up pulling that video down because I got a couple of people who said to me that I was speeding. So even though it was a Sunday, even though there wasn't anybody in the construction zone, that's what people were. That was the feedback that I was getting. And I eventually just pulled the video down and reshot it. Okay. Thomas, some rules of the road are only learned when you are on the road. That is very true, Thomas. That is so true. And, I say this again and again and again. Learning how to drive, doesn't matter what you're learning how to drive, whether it's riding a bicycle, whether it's riding a motorcycle, driving a car, driving a bus, driving a pickup truck. It is not a spectator sport. This is something that you have to do. You have to get in the seat. You have to drive the vehicle. And this is why I am so critical of the mandatory entry-level training program, that it is not working. It is not going to produce safer drivers because they have not increased the seat time that commercial drivers have to earn their license. It simply increased classroom time and it increased yard time. It did not give drivers more seat time. And drivers cannot learn how to drive a bus or a truck without getting in that seat and driving the vehicle up and down the road. It just simply can't happen. And that's my criticism of the mandatory entry-level training program. Samu, do you have any advice for driving an SUV like an Infiniti versus driving a sedan like a Camry SUV? SUVs always overwhelm me. Absolutely. And Samu Ray, I have a video on how to drive an SUV, and that will help you out and get you going with driving that. And Corey will put that video up for us. Michael, Michigan is stay at home till May 28th. Yeah, so we're looking at into the end of May now, and I just got news today that my trip to Las Vegas has been canceled. That WestJet here in Canada, our airline, is not traveling internationally, so I can't go into the States. So unfortunately, that's been canceled. Kendall, did I miss it? Don't know what you missed. No, we're still here. We're here for another half hour. Michael, in Michigan, construction zone is 60 miles per hour. Workers present, it is 45 miles an hour. Okay, so that's what I was saying. That many of these signs will have that condition in construction work zones. And I have seen these. This is probably why I was thinking that, because I've seen these in the States, and exactly what Michael said about the state of Michigan, where the speed limit is 60 miles an hour. Unless workers are present, then it's 45 miles an hour. But again, I would need to check the specific legislation in different states and provinces to give you that information to see whether the signs have that conditional provision that the signs say when workers present. And if it's not, if there aren't workers present, I don't know whether that's true. Okay. Epic. I only mentioned New Jersey because I live there, and I expect New York City to do the same thing to waive road tests for car licenses that won't apply to CDL applicants. Doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, none of these waivers. These waivers are only going to apply to passenger vehicles. I cannot see them applying to CDL licenses like buses and trucks. They're still doing those. And some of the provinces, I know the province of Saskatchewan here in Canada has resumed road testing. So you are going to be doing that, okay? Eleanor, with practice, I have got better at understanding of where I am on the road, like too far over or too close to other cars. Yes. And the other thing you can do, Eleanor, to improve that space management of your vehicle, where it is on the roadway and whatnot, is to go to a parking lot, get some pylons, and do some of the exercises working with pylons, like doing forward figure eights and reverse figure eights, backing around corners and those types of things. All of that will really help you out. And especially, Eleanor, if you've already done a bit of practice driving around on the roadways and those types of things, it's really good to get that refresher. So after you've had 5 or 6 lessons out on the roadway and you've got good driving around in traffic and those types of things, it's always really good to go back and revisit those fundamentals and just practice those a little bit, because now you have some familiarization with the vehicle and how it responds and those types of things, and you can really kind of play with the car and see how it responds in different situations. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Ray, if they waive, it's fine as long as I can still get my actual license. And yes, you probably, if they waive G1 into G2 there in the province of Ontario, that's most likely what they're going to do. Then you'll just take the final test to get your full G license. Michael, really doesn't matter. People, including truckers, speed on by. Yes, people do speed in construction zones, unfortunately, whether there's workers there or not. And unfortunately, and I really ask people to, obey people who are flaggers on the roadway, because they really have a tough job standing out there on the roadway every day, all day, directing traffic and whatnot. It's a tough job, and there are drivers out there who are using their vehicle as a weapon. They're simply not moving people around and whatnot. So, yeah. Eleanor, yeah, my dad uses trash cans for me to practice parallel parking. That's really awesome, Eleanor. That's great. My friend Sadan, yes, remained in a pause mode with work, canceled flights to Europe and closed the borders of Europe. I'm waiting. And Sadan, I have to really congratulate all of the frontline workers, the people who are working in grocery stores, the healthcare system, people in airports. My mom flew out from Ontario on Thursday and was saying how awesome airport staff were and enforcing rules and making sure that people were social distancing and whatnot. And they're really not fooling around in airports and whatnot. If you won't answer the questions or you don't maintain distances, the security guards just simply escort you out of it. And I really hadn't been out of town here for some weeks with the lockdown and whatnot. And we went down to the airport to pick up Mom, and there's a parking lot there that's probably a 2 or 3 acre parking lot that's long-term parking, where people park their vehicles for travel for 3 or 4 weeks. And that parking lot probably holds 1,000 cars. That parking lot was empty. And this is like a little airport. And my mom was saying to me that the Toronto airport, the Pearson International Airport, which is one of the biggest airports in the world, it's probably on par with trying to think of the airport's name in New York City, and London, London, England, Toronto is the same. And my mom said it was absolutely empty. There was like 3 or 4 people in there. It's just incredible, the lockdown and what the impact that it is having on our economy and whatnot. Eric, thanks, Rick, for your thoughts in addressing my questions regarding construction. Most welcome. DC, I'm confused about the G1 road test. Are you saying that those in G1 phase will move up to G2 without taking the test? DC, that is a possibility. They haven't enacted that yet, but they are going that way in the United States. The state of Georgia and the state of Wisconsin have done that. In those 2 states, you can move from your learners into the novice phase without having to take a road test, so long as you qualify and have had your learners for a year, you haven't had any violations, any moving violations, and you can sign an affidavit saying that you've done your 40 hours of practice, then yes. Colin, thank you. Yes, it's John F. Kennedy Airport is one of them. LaGuardia is the other one in New York City. So there's 2 airports there. Sadan, with borders, the situation will be until the June 1st unchanged. Then everything will depend on each country in Europe. Yeah, and it's gonna be a real mess there, Sadan, in terms of what they're doing in countries and whatnot. It's going to be up to different countries. Colin, Calgary airport's runways are being used as a parking lot, especially our smaller runway. And and the other the other interesting thing, of course, when my mom flew out, she was saying that the airplane was only about a third full. And they sent me a revised schedule of her flying out here, and usually it's 2 connections. And I didn't really pay attention to it. I just kind of looked at it and thought it was the same as it always was, because she's been flying out here for more than almost 15 years now. And I went back because we were supposed to go to the airport and pick her up at 11:30, and I looked at the schedule and I realized it was the next day, so she had to stay overnight. So I had to kind of rush around to get her a hotel in Calgary, which was interesting. Kendall, how do people practice the driving test? Okay, so I'll come back to that, Kendall. Colin, Rick, the best place to quarantine is in the sky. Yeah. DC, you're most welcome. And so practice driving test. Kendall, practice the driving test. I suggest that you start in a parking lot with pylons. If you don't have pylons, use trash cans, use golf bags or whatever you can that are going to allow you to practice in the parking lot. Do the slow speed maneuvers, parallel parking, backing around corners, set 2 pylons up, get used to the brake, get used to the steering wheel, get the throttle and whatnot. And, back around corners, back up in straight lines, do all of that. And then if you have your mentor and you can drive around on the roads, this is a really good time to actually practice and drive around on the roads because there isn't as much traffic out. People aren't traveling, as I just said. So because people aren't traveling, the roads are less congested. But at one and the same time, don't think that less congested means that there's, people are being nicer to you. People really aren't. People are being arrogant on the roadways. They're speeding. They're driving dangerously. And there's been several reports that have come out that people are like, why is this happening? Well, I can tell you why it's happening, because there's no traffic out there. And when there's no traffic, drivers tend to drive more aggressively. So know that and be more vigilant and be more aware when you're driving and manage space really well around your vehicle. Because as I say, if you're not near anybody or near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit it. So make sure that you manage your space well around your vehicle. So slow speed maneuvers, go out on the roadway, and when you practice for your test, make sure that you focus on one thing per lesson, okay? Don't try and do everything. Try and focus on one thing. So if you're working on left-hand turns, then just do left-hand turns. And make sure that you move up the scale of difficulty, okay? So when you start left-hand turns, work in a suburban area, a place that doesn't have any controlled intersections and whatnot. Move up to stop signs, move up to yield signs and whatnot. And then as you get more comfortable with left-hand turns, then move into traffic lights and move into complex intersections. And that way it's going to, you're going to build on what you know, and success breeds success, right? The better you get, the more you're going to be able to do. So focus on left-hand turns in the next lesson, focus on right-hand turns, and then focus on your parallel parking for a lesson, and then focus on your reverse stall parking into parking lots and those types of things. And that will all make it really easy for you to learn how to drive. And again, if you have any questions about this, there's a full schedule included in the Pass Your Road Test First Time course over at the Smart Drive Test website. You can pick that up for $38. And as well, we include the defensive driving course and the winter driving course, winter driving smart course. Those 2 courses are included in the Pass Your Road Test First Time. And there's a schedule of things that you need to do, a 6 to 8 week schedule that will guarantee that you pass your road test first time. All right. Justin, who's good, bro? Continue to stay strapped with a mask and your seatbelt when in car. Awesome. Okay. And Samu Ray, not really. Mobile One. Studies have found nanoparticles of corona strands in altitudes of 30K. How it got there, they won't tell us. Okay, that's interesting. Interesting. So Colin can answer your airline questions and your travel related questions. Awesome. Commentary. Yes, I always encourage students to do running commentary, and exactly what Carrie was saying here, that when you're doing a running commentary and you're saying exactly what you're doing while you're driving, examiners do not have to guess what you're doing. Driving instructors and your mentors do not have to guess what you're doing. They can hear what you're doing. They can know that you're looking at the things you should be looking. You're observing the things that you should be looking at, and you are, taking in and assessing the risks involved with driving. So it takes the guesswork out of driving, okay? And I encourage you, when you're doing that, to have a running commentary. The other thing about it is that with a running commentary, while you're practicing your driving, you are going to learn more, you are going to retain more information while you're driving. It's not easy. Let me tell you, it is not easy doing a running commentary while you're learning how to drive. It's tough and it takes a bit of practice. So if you're not very good at it at the beginning, don't beat yourself up and go, oh, I really suck at this. Just say, listen, I'm learning, I'm giving myself space, and I'm going to get better at this. So do that, okay? 777, Ontario Drive Test website didn't have any info on road tests being waived. Where can we find more info on how to obtain a waiver? Okay, 777, there's some confusion here that Ontario is waiving road tests. No, Ontario is not waiving road tests as of yet, okay? I'm saying that the state of Georgia and the state of Wisconsin in the United States have waived road tests, okay? So comparable to Ontario, they're moving people from the learner's phase to the novice phase without doing a road test in the state of Georgia and in the state of Wisconsin. That has not happened yet in Ontario. What I'm saying is that they probably have to waive the road test in Ontario because they're simply not going to have enough personnel to catch up with the backlog. If they don't waive the road test, they're going to have to shorten the duration of the test, and people will probably have to wait 6 or 8 months to get their road test, which is going to be unacceptable for those people who are waiting for a road test. So know that, okay? But it hasn't happened yet. There is a possibility, but it hasn't happened yet in the province of Ontario, okay? Justin, did you hear about Georgia, that driver's ed only needs online course but no actual driver on road test? Yes, I've heard about that, Justin, and also Wisconsin has followed suit. Yeah. Eleanor, yes, my father has really been helping me. He is patient and helps me. I was wondering if there is a practice wheel you can get, or just recommend going to the lot to practice with physical. Yes, no, Eleanor, I use the car, use your dad's trash cans, go to the parking lot, back around corners, get them set up so that you simulate a parking space, and then you can back in from a 90-degree angle. Put the one at one end and one at the other end and do forward figure eights, and then when you get good at that, do reverse figure eights, and that will really help you out. And then drive around the pylons in a circle, back around the pylons in a circle. And as well, the other thing you can do, Eleanor, that will really help you out for learning your driving is to reverse, right? If the more you can reverse, again, that's going to teach you mastery of the primary controls, and it's going to teach you where your vehicle is in space and place. Carrie, thinking we need to be really cautious right now when we drive, since some people are driving crazy at the moment with less traffic on the road. That is true, Carrie. Definitely manage your space well around other vehicles and other road users on the roadway, because people think that, it's kind of a free-for-all because there's less traffic on the roadway. So, yes. Tips for changing lanes in really heavy traffic. Okay, Thomas, excellent question, and I get this question a lot in terms of changing lanes in heavy traffic. Okay, so going down the road, mirror signal shoulder check. So put your signal on, check the mirror, shoulder check, okay? When you're looking in the mirror, if there's a space there you can move into, the car should be in the top third of the mirror. All right? So shoulder check, there's a space, there isn't a space there, leave your signal on. As I tell people, other people are only going to help you move over if they know that you want to move over. Too many drivers wait for a space. They don't communicate. They don't ask to move over. And remember, your signal is to tell other people that you wish to move over, not that you are moving over, right? You'll see that heaps and heaps when you're driving. So leave your signal on. And eventually, the other person will make a space. They will let off the throttle and back up and make a space. If they don't, and you continue to have your signal on in heavy traffic and moving over, move the vehicle to the left of the lane. Once you start crowding the center line, don't move out of your lane, but crowd that left side of the lane. Once you crowd that left side of the lane and you've got your signal on and you're holding the signal on, that vehicle, that driver will think you're coming over and they'll back off. They'll create a space for you in heavy traffic. So that's the key to merging in heavy traffic. First of all, make sure you communicate, mirror signal shoulder check. Make sure the vehicle's in the top third. If there isn't a space there, leave your signal on and then just leave it on. Eventually a driver will create a space for you. So that's how you merge in heavy traffic. Justin, your channel is super informative with driving tips and tricks. Keep it up. Thank you so much for the compliment, Justin. That's awesome. And we are going to keep going here. Actually, I'm really considering splitting the channel into two channels. One just for driver's license tips and another one for safer, smarter driving. But I'm still in the formative stages and conceptualizing. Jonathan, I still can't imagine the wavering road test here in New York, but the backing of those road tests would be too overwhelming, though I doubt that they'll waive commercial road tests. No, they're not. I can't see them waiving commercial road tests, Jonathan, but I can see them waiving the passenger vehicles, of moving people from the learner's phase into the novice phase. And by doing that, it's not that they're completely waiving the road test, because in order to get a full license, drivers are still going to have to take another road test. So it's not like they're going to completely waive the road test. They're just moving them from the learner's phase into the novice phase. And I'm going to give that a bit more thought about, revamping this, because I'm thinking that the other thing is that they're going to learn from this. In the end, is they're going to learn that the GLP program, the GDL program, isn't working. It isn't paying the dividends for the amount of energy that's going into it, right? It's simply postponing young people getting their license until they're into their 20s. Okay. Eleanor, I'm going to go. Thanks for all your help. You're most welcome, Eleanor. Drop back, leave us a comment, send me an email with anything we can help you out with, and that will help you out. Katie, is it normal to be nervous leaving a shopping center going onto a multiple lane? Yes, it is normal. Totally normal, Katie, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of traffic around you. There's like kind of a lot of chaos, and you're crossing a multi-lane road. Yes, it completely nervous. And being nervous or being a little bit afraid is not a big deal when you're driving. It's not a big deal. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you aware of what's going on around your vehicle. And I would argue that it makes you a safer driver. So, don't freak out too much about all of that. Excellent. And thank you for that awesome encouragement there, Eric. That's brilliant. Colin, see, flying planes, we don't have to learn all this moving over thingy, Miggy. No, Colin, it's just three-dimensional. So instead of being two-dimensional, now it's three-dimensional. Up, down, forward, back, and side to side. Three-dimensional. Altitude, add that whole new dimension to flying and, running into other things and birds and all that crazy stuff. Truly blessed. Is Illinois changing the rules for the test? Truly, they have not changed the rules yet, but I believe that now that 2 states have waived the test from the learner's phase into the novice phase, I think it's only a matter of time before other states start going that way. But as of now, and just reiterate this for everybody watching now on the live stream and everybody watching on the replay, just reiterate, there's only 2 states that have waived the road test from the learner's phase into the novice phase. That's the state of Georgia and the state of Wisconsin. No other states have done this. No other provinces have done this yet. However, the longer the lockdown goes on, the bigger the backlog gets. And the bigger the backlog gets, I am serious right now when I am saying that another 2 weeks of lockdown, another 2 weeks of not doing road tests, I can almost with a great degree of certainty can say that it's going to be a backlog of 9 to 18 months to get a road test once these places open up again. So they're going to have to make tough decisions to be able to get people a license and get people moving on, because you have to understand that or keep in mind, not understand, keep in mind that people having a driver's license ties in directly to our economy, because so many people rely on having a car to get to work, to get to school, to get to recreational activities, that having a driver's license and having access to transportation is part and parcel of keeping our economy going and preventing our economy from crashing. Because if people can't get around, and people can't get to their jobs, and people can't get to their schooling, and they can't get to the recreational activities, the whole economy goes. So they know that. The authorities know that. They know that they have to get these people through. They know that they have to get these people a driver's license so that we can keep the economy moving forward and try to stave off a recession. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Ray, will 1 month of consistent driving be enough to start driving to my campus every day confidently when fall semester starts? Yes, it will, Ray. Definitely will. Absolutely. Mohammed, hey, I'm a junior and I'm not comfortable on the highway. Any tips? Yes, what I would suggest to you, Mohammed, if you want to work driving on the highways and becoming more comfortable with the highways and whatnot, work with somebody else who's a veteran driver who you trust, right? If you don't have a, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, or a friend or somebody who can go with you, maybe hire a driving instructor to go out with you and give you some tips and those types of things. A couple of things, driving on highways, maybe go out and drive on a highway that doesn't have any traffic, maybe early in the morning or later in the evening. Don't drive at night right away. Get used to it, get comfortable with it in the daytime. Manage space around your vehicle. Make sure that you have a 3 to 5 second following distance. And most important, Muhammad, is to know exactly where you're going, okay? Because if you don't know exactly where you're going, that's going to cause you more confusion and anxiety when you're out on the highway, because if you miss your exit, or you don't know where to get on the road and those types of things, then that can cause confusion as well. So make sure you know exactly where you're going. So no night driving, manage space well, 3 to 5 second following distance, and know exactly where you're going, and work with somebody else if you can. So that will really help you out. Okay. Colin says he learned how to get his pilot's license before he got his driver's license. Awesome. Michael, the thing is, people already know we're moving over when merging on a freeway. Yes, Michael, people do that all the time. And that's what I tell people. And, you'll see that with commercial drivers, people who are upgrading their license. They'll throw their signal on and the vehicle's already moving across. That's common. That's part of social driving. Blessed, is it a good idea to not take a road test? Blessed, I don't see it as being detrimental. I don't see it as being a bad thing, because a road test, yes, maybe, but it's not a definitive indicator of whether young people are going to have crashes or not. Okay, so I don't see it as a bad thing that they're waiving the test. I do believe that young people are going to self-regulate. I believe that parents are going to get involved, and parents are going to provide some oversight for young people who are driving. 777, when you say they will move people from learner to novice phase, which test are they waiving? Is this the computer knowledge test or the first of the 2 road tests? 777, this is the first of the 2 road tests. So you have to take the knowledge test. And for those of you who haven't taken your knowledge test and want to take your knowledge test, many places, many DOT centers, test centers are booking knowledge tests in. So you can get online, ring in and call them, and set up a booking for a road test or for your driver's knowledge exam and go in and write that. But what they're waiving, the state of Georgia and the state of Wisconsin, they're waiving the first of the 2 road tests. Okay, so they're moving you into the novice phase. Jonathan, I believe so. Okay, so Jonathan's answering that question. Thank you so much. Farron, good luck to everyone taking their test and driving out there for the first time. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And yes, we have a surprise for you tonight. Okay, last 5 minutes. Here we go. Are you coming? The kids are coming on. So, yeah, so this is going to unfold. We'll know more. We'll learn more as everything's going on here. I don't know whether they're going. I don't think they're coming. What are you doing? All right. So if you have any questions, you're watching on the replay, you're watching now, let me know. Let me know what's going on. Are you coming?
Daddy, Nan isn't gonna come.
Yeah, okay, Nan's fine. Nan's fine.
I want Nan to come.
Yeah. So what happened?
I want Nan to come.
You want Nan to come.
I want Nan. Nan.
No, Nan's not coming.
I want Nan to come.
Are you
here
going to say
for a
hi?
minute. Hi.
Okay, Hall Phase, we'll see you later. Thanks so much. Farron,
You're
people
yelling
love to
in
indicate.
my ear.
While changing directions, that is terrifying. I put on the indicator and move over at least 3 clicks and the flashes from the indicator. Awesome, and that's the way you should be doing it, Farron. All right, Hall Phase, excellent. Tyrese, when do you think they're going to open back up with driving centers? I think...
Bob.
Yeah.
I'm Bob. My name is Bob.
Hang on a sec.
I named myself Bob.
Tyrese, they're probably going to... June. I suspect June is when stuff is going to start opening back up for certain, okay? I think we're still waiting another couple weeks to see how things are going here. All right?
I am Bob.
All right, nobody gets the joke, honey? It's an inside joke.
No, I am Bob.
Yeah.
I am Bob.
Okay, you going to say hi?
I'm Bob.
Hi. But my name, for people, her name is not Bob. Her name is Scout, and my name is
Bob.
Burn. She's lying. Her name is Burn. Scout.
Her
name is Scout.
Snail named Bob, and I also named my. I took Nan's phone and there's this snake game where you gotta try not to run into people, but you want other people to run into you, and I named him Bob. Bob. Oh, Bob.
So what were you doing? Why were you working with snails?
Because
I was saving them
Saving them from what?
from crows.
from us shoveling them up because we were working in the garden.
Oh, okay, so you're working in the garden. So yes, so everybody's calling...
Hello, Bob.
Yeah, everybody's calling you Bob now.
Yay, I'm Bob.
And I've been doing a puzzle.
Bob.
Camera's there.
Bob.
And I've
Bob.
And I've been doing a puzzle. And I've been doing a puzzle.
I don't like Bob the
Okay.
Builder.
Hey.
I like Bob. Just Bob.
Hello, Bob. Hi, Bob. Hi,
What's the
Bob.
puzzle?
The
Bob
puzzle was I'm a 500 Star Wars star. I'll get the.
You're on my body. You got coatings
Here's what
because
it
I'm
was.
Bob.
Inside voice.
Here's what the puzzle looks like.
You're yelling. Burn's yelling.
There you go.
See?
Bob.
This star was 500 pieces. She was 500 right here.
Okay.
And then wait, and then here's the shirt. Here's
Stick
the
to your
shirt.
lights.
And then here's the shirt.
No, nobody
Yeah.
can see it.
There you go. So he's got the matching shirt. Star Wars. Awesome.
Bob.
Ray, I'm so glad about the extra $600 from unemployment. I would never have enough money to get my first car at 20 without it. Yes, that is definitely helpful, isn't it, Ray?
I've got $45, I think. A lot of money. I also and then I have 60 cents.
60 cents.
Bob. If you watch Tag, I learned my name from there. Bob. Oh, Bob. Who'd want to go?
Yeah, what's the name?
Marry
What's
an
the story behind Bob?
Bob.
Oh, I know what the story
Oh,
behind
Bob.
Bob is. The story behind Bob is we were watching Tag, and one of the guys' names was Bob, and they were making fun of his name, that it wasn't very sexy.
Watch Tag. It's on Netflix. And Chef. It's a good movie.
There we go.
They're spelled T-A-G. I think
Okay.
that's our mom.
Hey, you can't just go.
But that's Mommy.
No, say hi. Say bye.
Bye. Mommy. Mommy's here.
Yes, lots of homework, Eric, for sure. Absolutely. Farron, dang it, I wish I did not hate Star Wars now. We'll just pretend you didn't say that, Farron. We still love you, though. We still absolutely love you. All right, everybody. If you have any questions, you're watching on the replay, you're watching here on the live stream, thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. We'll see you during the week. Unfortunately, my back has deteriorated. I haven't been doing as much as I should be, so I'm going to try and get back to all of this week. And Farron says Bob is a great name. It's a great palindrome because it's easy to spell both backwards and forwards. So we'll leave it there for tonight. All the best. Have a great week. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Bye now.
Bob's out.